Here's what I've noticed over a very, very long time. Most high-level investors, wholesalers or flippers, they're experts in their backyard.
That's true.
They're experts.
Vegas is like really reserved for people that they screwed up in their life.
Oh my God.
And then they moved to Vegas to restart.
That's a real thing?
Because no one knows you there, so you can start fresh.
Even in a booming market, you can have somebody saying, well, it's a bad market. Well, it's bad to what? It's bad to yesterday, it's bad to last month. You know, everything is up and down, just like the stock market. Housing market is just the same.
Carlos Reyes on the humble show. Yeah, we all in, yeah, we all in. So grab your boys now, cause you know we all win. Lift your hands up.
Real estate investors and real estate wholesalers, today we're going to teach you how to stay profitable in a soft real estate market. Welcome back to the All In Podcast. I am your host, Carlos Reyes. And before I introduce the usual suspects in the room, do me a huge favor. If you have not subscribed, please do so. Right across from me, the man, the myth, the legend, the most interesting man in the industry, Mr. Zady. To his right, another one of the usual co-hosts and suspects, born closer, aka Adrian Salgado. And to my left, my business partner of over a decade, Mr. Sal Shakir. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back.
Right? So, you know, I've been talking to a lot of real estate investors across the country. And some of them are freaking out. Some of them are freaking out. Depending on the market, depending on the strategy, some of them are freaking out. I was just talking to Brian Davila this morning, right? And this is on the fix and flip side, right? Wholesalers and wholesalers who are also novators, right? They seem to be doing okay. They seem to still be moving the needle in certain markets, right? If they have an infrastructure in the markets that they're wholesaling and novating, they seem to be okay, right? And we'll get into that later. There's some of them that are doing okay or good, and some of them that are not doing okay. And we'll break that down later. But fix and flippers in certain markets, right? They're freaking out. And again, I was talking to Brian Davila, and he said in Vegas, he's like, people are freaked out. They're freaked out. They're like, oh, you know, the properties aren't moving. You know, it's a soft market. People are scared to fix and flip right now in Las Vegas.
Well, you got to think about Vegas in general, right? It's a transient state. It's a transient market.
It's filled with transplants.
Yeah, people are only...
You know what a transplant is?
People.
A transplant? It's a person that moves to a city from another city and then eventually tries to make that city like the city they came from.
Oh, like Californians.
Like Californians, when Californians moved to Arizona, Texas, and Nevada.
But Vegas is
That's
special.
like Zady.
Vegas is special.
Vegas is special
He lives
because
in California.
Vegas is like where people, Vegas is like really reserved for people that they screwed up in their life.
Oh my God.
And then they moved to Vegas to restart. That's like
That's a real thing?
that's like the general, because no one knows you there, so you can start fresh. You know, you like, if you were a shitty person, you start fresh. You know, that's
So
why
they're just trying to like escape their past?
that's why it's difficult to trust people there, you know?
You know, I don't think I can ever live in Las Vegas. And I know this is going
Sin
completely in
City,
another
of course,
direction,
but
right?
it's like Sodom and Gomorrah.
You know what's crazy? So, right, if you love your peace of mind, right, and your spiritual peace, I don't think Las Vegas is the place for you. Now, the Las Vegas residents, right, like the Bradleys and the Ryan Pinedas of the world that I know they're immediately going to say, oh, well, you know, why are you on the Strip? Like, you don't need to be on the Strip. Just live off of the Strip. Live in Summerlin and all these other nice areas, right? But, bro, the Strip is a little more toxic and negative from a vibrational standpoint, but I feel like, you know, there's a limitation.
Well, people don't live on the Strip; they visit the Strip,
Exactly.
so they have to live somewhere.
Well,
else.
the workers work in the city, and then they go to the Strip.
There's
and
a
come
constantly
and infect the city.
exchange and cross contamination
Yes. Yep.
of
Yep.
the strip
Yeah.
and the regular, living areas there.
This-
Yeah, you can't say that it's unaffected.
Yeah.
The city is affected in one.
It has to be.
This is the best way I like to explain
Especially
it.
if the driving force is the strip.
This is the best
for
way
that
I like
city.
to explain it. If you're a teenager, you generally speaking, you're not going to listen to parents, right? You're going to do the things that maybe you shouldn't do. You're exploring, you're generally speaking. So in a normal city, a kid goes to a bar, gets a fake ID, goes to a bar and, or smokes a cigarette. In Las Vegas, you go to the strip and you see hookers, okay? Like normal women walking around, right? And then you see men talking down to these hookers. Hey, what's up, baby? Ooh, they talk like this, right? So now you have this 16-year-old kid, 15-year-old kid that looks at that, and now that's into their subconscious mind. So then when they go back to their school, that's how they're talking to their friends. So that's how the infection kind of bleeds off of the strip. And for you to raise a child there, honestly, you're a gambler. Like straight up, you're a gambler. I don't care who you are. You have a child in Las Vegas, you are a gambler.
And that was the whole point.
God.
That was the whole reason why I said this is a transient state, right? You got to look at it. Vegas is always a hit and miss market because families aren't going there to live that family life. It's like LA, right? LA, people aren't running to LA to live a family life. They're in search of a dream. They're in search of a fantasy. So the same thing, they go to Vegas in search of a dream to hit it rich or a fantasy to make it into a Las Vegas show. So it's a lot of singles, a lot of like people with, hey, this is my like you said, I got to restart my life. This may be my only chance. So that's why it's a soft market. And then it's constant people losing their shirts, right?
That's
they're
right.
gambling,
Yeah.
they're fornicating, all that stuff, and they end up losing their house or their livelihood. So then they have forced to sell their house and move. So when it comes to wholesaling, yeah, it's a really good market, but fixing and flipping,
Yeah, that's right.
like it makes it pretty challenging.
Good point.
And we've had success there.
It's just, I think it's a matter of, and this is talking about market. This is all about wholesaling still, because you're talking about a market, right?
Right.
Now we're highlighting.
We're stuck in Las Vegas, but Las Vegas is a very popular market for a lot of people.
Correct. So that's what I was gonna say is that everything has its own pros and cons.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. It's just it's just there.
Yeah.
It's there. And recognize it for what it is, and then go after the areas that will sell. That it doesn't what kind of people. Now we're talking about families or not families, but let's talk about being in the real estate market. All you care about is you have a house, you fix it and flip it, or you wholesale it.
Mm-hmm.
There is just like an old saying in the car business, there is an ass for every seat.
Right.
That means there is a buyer for every house. As long as you understand the trends of the market and where you're gonna go, what area you're gonna flip in, or what area you're gonna wholesale, then that's all you need to worry about. All the other stuff that you're talking about, the strip and like the fornication and all that stuff,
Right.
it boils down to this at the end of the day. When you're looking at a market, how many days is on the market? How fast, how fast does it sell? What is the average, price in that area? And
How consistent is
and
the
how-
market?
yeah. so that's all you need to watch. You look at charts and you understand what is the trends in that area, and it's all up and down in any market. Even in a booming market, you can have somebody saying, well, it's a bad market. Well, it's bad to what? It's bad to yesterday. It's bad to last month. Everything is up and down, just like the stock market. The housing market is just the same.
And also to add to that, sort of like you were talking about Brian, and you're talking about like flippers flipping out. I mean, if you're the cheapest house on the market, you're not going to flip out, and your property is going to move.
Mm-hmm.
So that part I don't get. Like, if people are freaking out, okay, just change your pricing, be the lowest on the market.
Well, it goes back to what we learned, right? Is how do you acquire the deal? And we know for a fact, we talk to people constantly, especially you guys talk to people constantly of construction companies or remodeling companies that are still buying all their deals off the MLS, or they're still buying their deals off of other wholesalers.
Wow.
So if you're buying a deal off another wholesaler, chances are there's probably not room for error or market and market fluctuations.
Well, yes and no. I kind of agree to an extent. You make your money on the buy.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
100%.
Who you buy it from, it doesn't matter.
Right.
you make your money on the buy and you predict. Like you already know there's some expenses that is non-negotiable. Example, there's your closing cost. That's non-negotiable. There is your if you're having a hard money loan, it depends if you're using cash or hard money loan. Those are non-negotiable. Your rehab costs, that one, there is margins in there. You know, it depends.
Yeah.
That fluctuates based on where you buy your material, who does your labor, and you leave a margin for that. And there's another thing that you can already implement, and we already implement that in our own strategies, in our own fixing and flipping strategies, is we factor in a concession. Concessions are, I think, 60% of houses that just sold in last month. They charge 60-some%. I remember the number. That was in Arizona. Is they required concessions. Concession is when you, the home seller, have to give some money or some financial help to the buyer, whether they buy down their interest rate or they just need help with the down payment
Like
of the house.
$2,000 cash back at closing, something like that.
I mean, it's usually
To help buy down.
Is it a form of like
average
a
is between
credit
like
or
$6,000, $8,000. You know, that's in a $400,000 medium house. Just add these numbers, and now it's predictable, almost predictable. If the market goes up and down, that number will change how much money you make. But plug in these numbers and add and know what your error factor or margin of error factor, and you'll be okay.
I have a question for you guys. It's all, to all of you. It's related to this. Why would somebody base their calculations solely on best case scenario? You know, that the rehab is $30K, no concessions added. We're gonna sell at this price, top of the market, or whatever price that they think that they could sell at. It's in the mid-high range instead of the low. What would cause an investor to do that? Because by definition, an investor is not supposed to do that.
Like, those are delusional optimists.
They probably haven't gone through.
Yeah, they haven't gone through. Either they haven't been burnt.
They haven't lost their shirt the way you and I did in the third quarter of September. In the third quarter, which was September of 2022.
Yeah.
We lost our shirt, boy.
Yeah,
I was talking about that.
We had
Yeah, your
properties.
titties
I was
were
talking
out.
about that. I thought we had. I was telling everybody like, oh, you know, we had 15 listings. We had 15 listings or 15 projects outstanding. You said it was 18.
So we had 18, 12 of them were bad. So the 5 were okay. The 12 of them that we were, because we sold
Wait,
it.
so hold on. 18, 12 of them. There's still
12 of
6
them
left. There's 6 left.
No, 12 of them were bad. Like, we were okay with those 18. Where they were offloading just in the right time. So we had some contract that we had them almost being done. Some of them were listed already. Some of them we had offers on. 12 of those 18.
We took the loss.
We were like, okay, we're hitting the danger zone. Now we're racing them. We're racing to the bottom.
I
of the
remember
market.
that.
So
I
we had
remember
to
that.
Chasing the market.
We're chasing the market down, though.
Down.
We kept
That's horrible.
changing
Wow.
prices down because inventory was high. People were freaking out, and we had hard money loans. We were paying like 60 something. I don't know, just actually more than that.
Yeah.
I don't remember the
It's like
number.
6
And this is
figures
when
on
no
one
one was
side.
paying. This is when everyone was like, "Oh, the market," like, and they were negotiating, and
defaulting on
everyone
their
was
loans.
defaulting. You guys didn't. I remember that.
Yeah, but because we bought them right. So guess what?
Yeah.
Our average properties, because we were gonna make a lot of money in these properties because we bought them pretty deep. But when the market shifted,
We didn't buy them that deep. Not as deep as we're buying today.
blended overall,
because of the lesson.
blended overall, they were okay, but we had a lot of property they were bought deep. So we had property that would make 80 grand, the other property would lose 60 grand. So you would only have 20, right?
I get it.
So you had to come up to the table, the closing table, with some money after reducing the price, after paying all these months of hard money.
So you wouldn't make money on the deal. You would have to come to closing with money
yes.
to get rid of the
Yes.
Overall, we
liability.
landed
Wow.
all right because overall we were okay.
You had enough. Yeah.
Right, we survived. The Carlos is like, we survived that. How did we survive? We
That's what I'm
survived it
saying,
for
yeah.
that reason. Had we now that we burnt ourselves like that, I know how to do it better. I would never be caught with my pants down on a downturn with 18 properties or 12 properties, right? So what I would do is I would have 6 properties at all times.
You got
right?
caught with your pants down at a rest stop.
Yes.
With lot lizards.
With lot lizards swarming. With the lot lizards swarming.
Damn.
The lot lizards.
Sorry, bro. Continue, and then I want to get back into some stats.
So ideally for us, we like to have 6 properties circulating at all times. Now you can have 10 if you want, but you just have to be a lot more nimble and agile.
Well, right now we used to like to have 15 to 20 circulating at all time.
Correct.
Right now, you like, because of,
Yes.
the volatility, in multiple areas of the economy,
Yes.
right? You want to be between what, 6 and 8 max?
Well, it depends. It depends on where your risk tolerance is, and what you're looking at cash flow, what you're looking at how easily you pivot, because it can depend on
We're buying
how
pretty good
easily
right
you
now.
get properties.
Sal, we're buying at 60. We are buying at 64.6% to ARV, after repair value.
Yeah, but for us, it's different. So everybody's going to be different. It depends on how fast can you acquire properties. You have some people that will take any property they see, they think it fits their buy box, they want it now because they're afraid that they'll lose it to the next investor.
Yeah. It becomes a scarcity
It becomes
game.
a scarcity game.
Yeah.
So once you identify the number of the cash flow that you can have and you can sustain, if there is a softening in the market, how much can you sustain? But there's another scarcity, the FOMO factor of, I need to grab as many properties as I want because it makes me money. They don't factor in the other risk factor of market softening, or they don't know, they can't trust their buying stamina, is that they can buy X amount of properties whenever they want. So they'll try to grab onto any junk they'll see, thinking that it is what it is. I need to have X amount of properties.
Wait, wasn't that happening with us, with the specific employee on his way out?
He was on his way out, so he grabbed the last few properties in that manner, because things were going okay, and that's why averaging it was okay overall. We still lost, don't get me wrong, but averaging it was okay because you had good ones, and then the scarcity mindset on his way out, he just wanted to grab as much properties with our dimes.
Yeah.
But then when he left, he's like, "Oh, there's not enough money, so yeah, it's fine for me to quit." So he took his shot.
He took a blind shot.
No,
Yes.
that technically
With
that's-
someone
that's-
else's money.
That's the method that some of these bigger companies, bigger competitor iBuy companies, would focus on. Remember we talked about this, is that they're not going to make money on every single deal, but at the end of the quarter, if they're in the green, then they're good.
That's right.
Okay, so let me give you
Well, we weren't big enough for that.
hey, here, let's talk about, and we'll get off the Las Vegas market,
Yeah.
right? But let me give you some data for the Las Vegas real estate market. In February, the Vegas median listing was $459,900. And in March, the Las Vegas average medium home sold price was $439,000. So it was on average, right? These properties were selling $20,000 lower than the original listing price. When you see that, right, where it's dropping, 10 grand here and there, month over month, that's when you really got to keep your eye on the ball. You know what I mean? Right? Like you got to play in between. And at this point, like you almost have two accounts, just like we used to be able to account for
A 10%
value increase.
Yeah.
Now you have to account for value decrease.
I was gonna say, what is just so people can take something from it? What key factors give you information for you to identify, hey, this is a soft market? What are the key performance
that right
indicators
there, right? Like that right there, when you're seeing
Time on market?
when you're seeing like the average price or the average sell, right? Continue to drop versus what it was initially listing, like that should definitely send you a red flag or a tap in the shoulder.
What else?
If you see inventory increasing, right? If you see average days on the market increasing, if you just see the
Hope you guys are
average,
taking notes, bro.
the average medium price of across the entire market, like I'll give you an example in Arizona, right? According to the Cromford report, the average, I actually wrote it down here earlier. Yeah, there it is. So the average value of a home in Arizona was $460,000 in February. Sorry, in March, right? In March. And then now in April, the average medium value of a home is $449,500.
Yeah.
So
Dropped
you see,
around
and you see how
11K.
like we have a very reflective market with Las Vegas. We've always said that
Yeah.
that Arizona has a mirror market like Las Vegas, right?
Same
Think
desert.
about it. What is the price differential there, right? In that case, for us in Arizona, it's 10,500. In Las Vegas, actually that was medium listing versus medium sold price. Let me get back to you on what the actual average value of a home was, right? But here's the other thing. In Las Vegas, what I don't understand, watch this. The average days on the market in Las Vegas for all listings, according to realtor.com, is 44 days. To me, that's actually healthy. Like we're flipping in some zip codes here in Arizona that you're like between 50 and 60 days, average listing days for us is a good thing. We're like, yeah, well, it's good. Because we're understanding the market, right? You know what I mean? Like, remember back then it was like anything under 30, you're like, dude, that's a hot zip code.
market, right?
Right now. And then it was like anything under, 40 still. Anything under 50, we're anything under 60, we'll take a shot on, right? You know what I mean? There's a buy box criteria that we follow, which I actually might share a little later, so stick around for that.
You brought up something interesting. It's not really the city, right? It's zip code. So days on market per zip code, right? Because the city's average could be 40, but your particular zip code might be 30.
That's right. There are some zip codes and some areas in just about every market that are far more desirable.
Yeah.
And people aren't looking at price so much in those areas, I'll give you an example. Here's another, dude, I try to get as granular as possible. You can ask Adrian. And I know this might sound, my attempt isn't to redline in real estate terms, right? But I'll give you an example. Like we just did a deal in West Phoenix, right? Which I personally walked with my buddy Reyes, realtor. He was down from Salt Lake City, right? We did a deal in West Phoenix, Maryville area. And
Great area.
actually, I think it might be outside of the Maryville area, but it's West Phoenix, right? Well, guess what?
82nd?
Sarcasm.
82nd. Yeah.
Maryville.
Was it Maryville?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. It's probably right on the border of
Do you have your
Maryville.
bulletproof vest on?
No, watch this. Ready? So I know that area extremely well. My wife's family has lived in West Phoenix since the 90s, right? Now they live up in Glendale, but they've lived in West Phoenix since the 90s. So I'm very familiar with that area. I'm always around that area. I buy my mariscos and my coconut,
fruta,
with
your cocos.
right there on Thomas and 75th Ave, right? So it's a heavily Mexican populated area. Heavily, like I would say 99.99% in that neighborhood is Mexican. Like, and I'm not talking about like Chicano Mexican, like Mexican American. I'm talking about like there's a bunch of immigrant Mexican Americans that own the houses, and most of them probably don't even speak English, right?
Like they still throw their toilet paper in the
That's
trash
disgusting.
can.
We're not going to
And
talk
not
about
the
that. We're not going to talk about that, right? And then their sons and daughters. I'll get back to that. And their sons and daughters are first generation. Like that's how like deep
Is it more,
Mexican that neighborhood is.
Is it more Mexican than right off of Tempe, the little pocket? It's Guadalupe.
Yes.
It's
Stop
not
it.
Guadalupe.
Stop it.
Guadalupe is not even
Stop.
Mexican.
You don't know what I'm
that's,
talking about.
that's Native American.
That's Native.
Oh, Native.
Like, that's
Because I
Mexican
feel
and
like
native.
I'm driving in Mexico.
Yeah, it's
No,
Native
no,
in
it's Native
Mexico.
American. That's still
So-
basically like
So
reservation.
I was trying to make a point,
Wow, I never knew.
right? I was trying to make a point.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was very confident that we were going to sell that house for $410,000. Why?
Because you know the area.
I know the market. I know the area. You know what I mean? Like I initially, I said, you can push this 410. Boom. That comes with time and experience, obviously. You know what I mean?
Knowing your market.
Of knowing your numbers and knowing, like, bro, I'm down to like,
Worst case scenario.
like, bro, no, I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but I'm down to the race. Like, I know what certain races in certain areas are willing to pay
Cash in the mattress.
to live next to our own people.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Not only that, it's like, especially
Yeah.
with Hispanic families, right? In today's market where the cost of living is getting higher and higher every single month, right? With inflation, with everything. But a house like that, you get two houses and you have one of them that's, 1,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, and then you have another one that's 1,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. You're gonna get that in that market. That 4 bedroom is gonna sell much faster than that 3 bedroom.
All day.
Because what's happening, especially in that market too, is knowing your markets, you get multiple families in these dwellings.
By the way, no, see, we're experienced enough where we're not. It's not about knowing our markets, brother. We know the neighborhood.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? Like
The people
like
who
knowing
live
the market's
in their
great
market,
at a macro level.
Yeah.
If you know the neighborhood, like you're down to like, you know what I mean? The grassroots of it, you're gonna be flipping pretty well.
$1 million question here, bro. Oof. Okay. If you guys could somehow answer this, how do you get to know a neighborhood? You're not from the neighborhood, right? You don't have that advantage, but you want to get to know the neighborhood. You want to understand the neighborhood. What do you do? What action
I'm gonna let
steps
Sal
can
answer that,
somebody
and then I
do
think everybody
to
has their own.
understand a neighborhood?
I think everybody has their own perception or perspective of that. So I'm gonna let everybody respond.
From
Mr.
a
Sal, you wanna
flipper's
go first?
perspective, by the way, a flipper's
Yeah,
perspective.
I can answer the neighborhood question, but there has to be take an approach of a bigger picture approach, then start narrowing it down. Just like how you run comps in real estate, you run comps. You start narrow and then you go wider.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
This one is reverse engineering.
Oof.
This is the opposite of that.
Take notes,
to understand a market is the biggest metric you want to see in a market is this a buyer's market or a seller's market? That's like that's the surface level of a bigger bubble.
There you go.
Right. Yeah.
So once you understand, is it a buyer's market or a seller's market?
That tells you the direction it's going, right?
Correct. So now you're seeing it from a very 360 overview. And then you start to narrow it down. Okay, so it's a buyer's market or is it a seller's market? Then you dive down a little bit deeper. Okay, is it specific to these markets or not? Because there could be states, there could be counties, there could be certain zip codes that are different than that. And then you start to dig down a little bit deeper, like Carlos was talking about. How many days on the market? What is the average price, median price? And then you start to narrow down. And then to understand the neighborhood, because if you're wholesaling, the demographic, because if you're wholesaling in another state, then you really don't know. But if you are in that state and you know your state, you would just know. You drive in that neighborhood and you understand. It's the same analogy as you go to, or it's perfect for real estate. You go into a neighbor online, you're buying a property online, wholesaling it or fixing it, whatever that is. You're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, this is worth $500,000. Then you try to talk to another person from that market and they'll say, no, this is worth $400,000.
Right.
And they'll be like, what are you talking about? The comps, this is a comp a quarter mile away saying that this is sold for
across the street from this one street.
Across the street.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, no. So this is a nice area, but right next door, you're entering the hood. That's where crimes are happening. So how do you understand that? It's just by knowing the market. I mean, watch the news. I'm sure there is online resources, see crime areas and how many crimes is in that area. You have to talk to other realtors in that area. You have to talk to other people that know what's going on in there. You can do it online, but it's easier to talk to somebody from within the area that understands the market. If somebody called you today about Vegas market, California market, or Arizona market.
Zip codes,
here's one thing that I always you can always look at as well to kind of identify what type of market you're in, right? I use an app called Landglide. Mm-hmm. You can use the county assessor.
Great app, yeah.
You can use the county assessor, drop the address in there, and then start to look around at ownership of properties that are in the general area.
If they're LLCs or
if there's tons of
individuals.
LLCs in that area, it's probably a highly rented area, which means there's probably a lot of families coming in and out, and it's not the best, place to raise a family.
Wow.
But that also tells you if that's not the best place to raise a family, then you don't have to put all the finest finishes in this thing for a flip. You have to get it market ready for rent. So those are things that you could look at as well too.
Do you guys would you recommend looking at granular data that's accurate of like income in that area?
Yeah.
Would that be accurate? Like, let's say Maryville, where it's like heavily Hispanic, where it's like, correct me if I'm wrong, bro, but it's mainly like money under the table. It's not really like traditionally trackable information, right?
Yeah.
So like, how would you get that data on the computer? And let's just say, you talk to real estate agents and they're telling you different things. Like, what else can you do is what my question is, I guess.
Well, here's what I've noticed over a very, very long time is most high level investors, wholesalers or flippers, they're experts in their backyard.
That's true.
They're experts.
Facts.
Yeah. And then, you know, they're to some degree, right? Like if they are heavy, like I would say Las Vegas for us as a secondary market, we're pretty damn good at knowing the value in those in that market, right?
Mm-hmm.
And knowing some of the neighborhoods, but still not to the level that we know here,
Yeah.
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
That's saying a lot because you guys did a lot of business. You guys did more business in
Yeah.
Vegas than people that
Vegas-
like
some
Vegas
point
that
we
was
did.
their only
At
market.
some point,
Vegas
that
was
was
our
our number one
primary
market.
market for probably like 2 years at one point.
Yeah, at some point that was like the money maker.
Yeah.
Right now for us, according to the numbers that I got, was Texas and Arizona, right? So what I'm saying is, you know, and if you haven't learned your market at that level, then guess what? Start getting to it. Start doing research. Start asking questions. Start doing, you know, start studying. Start studying.
What's the first thing you would
And
want
not only
somebody
that-
to study?
Not only that, start driving, right? Start driving.
wow.
Start going into you know, get to know your market from like a hunter's perspective.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I like that.
You get what I'm saying?
Wow.
Like,
Yeah. Here's some
Wow.
here's some hunting tips that I can give.
There it is.
As
Give it
a-
to me.
Let's
as
go.
a
Let's go.
a guide, right, out here in Arizona, a real estate hunting guide. So specifically in Arizona, one of the most common factors that you can tell a house is distressed, especially in Arizona, is do they have an AC? Because there's still tons of houses out there that only work on a swamp cooler.
wow.
That's a huge
Vegas is
distress
like that too.
situation.
Wow, yeah.
Exactly. Number two, in these newer builds, these stucco homes, you know, 2000 and newer, right? You can't
Well,
really
some of them
tell-
are like 1990 and newer.
1990
Yeah.
and newer, but I'm talking 2000 and
Yeah.
newer. You're looking at these houses, a tell sign that there might be some distress there. A bunch of broken blinds, right? Windows open during the summertime is another thing that I look at. Blankets as shade covers.
Oh, yeah.
Oof,
That's
yeah,
a huge
yeah,
one too.
yeah.
And then when we get that little bit of rain in Arizona, that's a great day to go
Weeds.
driving for dollars. You go out there and you look for all the houses with blue tarps on them. Take that address down because there's a leak on that roof that they have. And then if they leave that there for during the rain season,
Yeah.
you know it's a bigger problem. than
I got some
expected.
tips. I got some tips.
By the way, you guys are talking at a micro level, but I'll take it, right? Like I was talking about becoming a hunter and knowing how to, you know, sniff out the neighborhoods and, you know, who buys what and what are they willing to pay and, you know, what kind of, what kind of community, you know, lives there. You know what I mean? Like, you know, what are the school grades there? Like school grading,
Yeah.
you know, what's the average household income in that area?
I think
You know?
a great way to determine what you're saying. This is what I've noticed from a real estate investor's hat is go to the gas stations. If you go to a gas station, primarily speaking, if there is no bathroom in that gas station, it's probably a really bad area.
Jeez,
And I
man.
say that for a reason because that means that the people going into that bathroom were probably using drugs and they had to get rid of the bathroom.
You know,
So-
I feel like if we were teaching new people, right, these would be great tips. You get
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like-
they should be taking notes 100%.
Exactly.
I think this is great information, but you guys are going way too deep.
micro, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, yo, you guys went like super
let the data
micro.
determine that.
Yeah, we're
how many
providing
days-
value,
How
bro.
much
At
the
they're
end of the
selling,
day,
Hunter,
how
bro.
much
But
does the
I
house
don't
sell
mind
for?
it. Go ahead, Sal. I don't mind
go
it.
driving.
I don't mind
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Go,
yeah.
go driving.
Get in the neighborhood.
Yeah, but I didn't mean driving for
Yeah, but
dollars.
You might be
and
scaring people from like you don't guys. You don't have to do that to flip houses. You're a fix and flipper or wholesale. That's crazy. Whether
Just find the house
This
and
is
send it
just
to
like
us.
extra sprinkle and like doing like some
They went
jiu-jitsu
deep.
moves.
Listen to the data guy.
Yeah, like look
Bro.
at the data. Look at the MLS data. How many days on the market? What is sold? If prices are
Back in
dropping or not?
primitive
And
times,
if
there
the
was no
if-
data.
If the neighborhood has criminal is like a rough neighborhood or not, you can do a quick research online and look at the news. But what's easier is you pick up the phone and talk to a realtor in that area. I'm sure you
But
can
do you really trust realtors, bro? They're gonna tell you whatever to sell shit, bro.
find
Like,
a realtor you can trust. It's
a realtor
very
you could
small community.
trust.
Oh,
It's a politician that's a good person. What do you mean,
so you
bro?
can see
Politician
when it's
doesn't
raining.
lie.
Bro,
so
maybe
you
a
can see
politician
the-
doesn't
Maybe
lie.
we should start talking about real estate a little more. Seems like everybody gets a little amped up. I like
Yeah,
it.
right. Like, he's talking about driving and like going to the gas
I was like,
station.
yo,
see
I'm like,
there's a
yo, this
bathroom.
turned
Bro,
into.
Here's some
hold,
data for
hold on,
you.
real quick. I'm like, Sal, I'm like, this turned into a driving for dollars course.
Yeah.
Like, what?
No,
I was
it's an
just trying to-
identifying property course.
I was just trying to help you know your areas and know your neighborhood, to know your values.
Zady out here is trying to know if there is.
Bro, they're talking about a tarp. Like it rained.
Bathrooms and gas stations.
Do me a favor. If
crazy.
you guys take that information and you land a lead, send it over to us. That way I can close it for you and I can put it in Carlos's face and say, hey, this is why we do that.
The blue tarp company closed the deal.
Here's some data for you, right? To help you on a macro level determine what markets or where you should be looking for properties. You got to look at the average household income, and then you have to look for affordable housing for these people. And then start attacking those properties, right?
Can't go wrong with affordable housing.
You can't go wrong with affordable housing. So if you're looking at a 2-family household that makes about $120 a year, and you know that their mortgage payment shouldn't exceed more than what you would say is a financial the most.
What percentage of their income?
What percentage
like their
of
debt to income ratio?
What percentage of their income should
Not
they
debt
be
to income
paying
ratio,
monthly
but
on
yeah.
a mortgage?
Wait, are you talking about affordable housing or HUD, like government assistance?
No,
housing?
affordable.
No, we're talking affordable
Yeah,
housing,
okay.
right? Like
would
that
you-
varies per market.
Would you
by
say
the
like
way.
10 to 15% of your monthly income should go towards?
Well, it depends on
mortgage?
what you're talking about. You're talking about bank qualification. Bank qualification is your debt to ratio is the house. If I'm remembering this correctly, same thing in the car. industry.
We're not mortgaged.
It's three.
Yeah.
It's 3 times. If you make $3,000, it can't exceed $1,000. So it's the factor of the 3. I could be off.
Mhm.
I could be off.
We're not mortgage experts.
Yeah, but that's what the institutions look for.
Right.
So if you make $3,000
Now,
a
if you're
month, you
talking
can only
about-
afford $1,000 mortgage.
Well, yeah,
Institutionally.
of course. Yeah,
That's it, yeah.
institutionally, that's what they look at. But
Yeah.
if you're talking about what should happen, now we can have a financial literacy class here.
institutionally,
yeah.
Absolutely not. I think that's a huge red flag, and
Wow,
don't do
really?
it. Yeah,
Okay.
because now you're just gonna you're shackling yourself for the next 30 years into this thing, expecting nothing would change. And there is other ways to do this the right way.
Wow, that's a podcast on its own.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
that's
that's
a whole
definitely
that's a whole financial.
But yeah,
literacy talk.
like I was saying, right? What's working for us right now is the affordable housing. We're going below the median home sale price in Arizona,
Yeah.
and we're locking up deals and selling them.
From what it looks like, not only in Arizona, but other real estate markets, right? Again, I've been talking to a lot of investors across the country, is you're either in these two thresholds or buying pools. You're either affordable housing and under, right? Like in Arizona, I would consider affordable housing $450,000 and under.
Well, now based off of the data, it's probably
as a
closer
medium
to
price.
400,000 now.
Oh, you think so?
I
Well,
think-
we can recheck, right? But we've been saying it's 450 and under.
Yeah,
Right.
That's how we've been buying. Right?
Yeah.
So if somebody's saying they have a property in Glendale that's a 500K ARV, they're talking out of their ass.
Not
It depends. Again,
Not
it
a gated
depends. It depends on
mansion
the
community.
pocket of the
Yeah.
neighborhood.
You're
If
still
someone-
close.
you
Yeah,
see-
you're still close
exactly.
within the range. Like
Yeah,
there is-
exactly.
there is a margin in
Yeah.
there. That depends on the neighborhood. If it's a safer neighborhood, if it's a newer area, if it has a pool, if it has a bigger backyard, there is
Amen.
other things that are desirable for
Yeah,
certain buyers.
yeah. So see, like you gotta at some point through your experience and repetitions, like you're gonna learn how to look at things not just from X's and O's point of view. Like you begin to look at all kinds of different things. You know what I mean?
Like, would
You
somebody
see-
pay? Would
When
somebody
would-
want to
yeah.
pay $500,000 for a house in Maryville or in Glendale?
Well, when was the last time, Adrian, that you saw me run numbers just based off numbers? See what I'm saying? Like I never do that.
Yeah.
What
I
about
don't run numbers just based on numbers are a big part of it, but they're not all of it.
What about getting into, I mean, for wholesalers, I guess specifically, how much does it matter? And I'm saying this so people could learn from it, but how much does it matter having a house on a busy street opposed to a cul-de-sac?
Oh,
Like price
come
difference
on.
wise, like days on market, those things are affected, right? Like how can one factor that into their numbers?
Watch this. Sal and I just turned down in our asset manager. He wanted it so bad.
That was 2 days ago.
He
yeah.
wanted it. He wanted this. He wanted to flip this house so bad, but it was the side of it, right, was to Indian School. Actually, no, 75th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
But one of those big,
Never
It was
gonna be
Indian-
quiet.
it was Indian
Basically, it's
it
never
was
gonna
like
be
a,
quiet.
bro, it would have turned out to be like a pet cemetery, bro. You know, right? Like you can't let the kids play because they might, the ball might go into the street and then you know what I mean?
Wow.
Right?
Jeez.
Exactly.
You're instantly at least 25 grand.
Easily.
Easily.
Just from the location.
Just from that.
Remember the way that I broke down the numbers? I said,
Yeah.
hey, well, properties that are not on this are selling for this. And then, similar properties to this that are selling on busy streets are actually selling for this. So you have to account for all of that.
Yeah, but then if you're in a soft market and you're trying to, if you're an investor,
Mitigate
and
the
fixing
risk.
and flipping that, okay,
Like-
you're expecting to make 30 grand. Well, the market is softening. You're banking on your margin of error is very small.
Yeah.
Now you have to dump this house when you fix it and you try to flip it on whoever is going to come buy it is going to be a very much smaller pool of people because you have more inventory. It's softening. So don't bank on it making money, and that's the reason why we turned it down. We turned
And
that
we're
house down. for that
experienced.
reason.
Watch this. Hey, I want everybody to listen to this. Sal and I are experienced investors, and we turned it down.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody out there that is not like that doesn't have all kinds of deals under their belt,
probably
like
would've
what
took
should
it.
you be doing?
Yeah. Oof.
You know what I mean? Like
Because you
we
could
turned
take
it
a bad
down.
situation and still make money out of it.
Yeah, oh,
because
for
of the
sure.
experience.
And
Somebody
yeah.
without the experience,
There, I mean,
they're
you're gonna
take the
you're
L.
gonna you're gonna be in a tough spot.
There's best case scenario, there's worst case scenario, but there's always this in between, in the middle, and that's a mitigated risk that you need
Sal,
to take.
let's be honest. We would have to have got that house like less than 50 cents on the dollar
Yes,
to
of
even
course.
think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like I wasn't, like I could have got it at like we could have got it at like 60, between 60 and 65 cents on the dollar. And we were like, we're good.
I remember that the worst flip I ever did was here in Phoenix. I still made a little bit of money off of it, but the front of the house was facing a factory that made tortillas, so industrial.
Yummy.
Horrible, horrible. But I had
Why did
150K margin on it.
Okay,
you know
got
what I mean?
it.
So I'm
Okay,
like,
got it.
I'm gonna make money on it no matter what.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I could undercut everybody in the market and still sell it and still make
You
money.
just got to move somebody into the loves tortillas.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, here, this is what we're gonna do because hey, this is getting very saucy and spicy. We need to continue this. We need to continue this the next week, and the next week we will give you our buying criteria in our market, and you can pretty much use this formula in any market.
I got a question for you.
So for next week, make sure that you tune in.
If somebody wants to get on the phone with you, do some sort of consultation, like, hey, I got this property I want to buy, can you advise me to buy it or not? Is there some sort of avenue for them? Is there anything that they could do to kind of reach out to gain a little bit of the expertise? I'm not saying that you're going to be on the phone, talking to 20,000 people, but is there something somewhere you could direct people to kind of, if they don't know, you could kind of help them learn?
Yeah, they can just text 623-292-7575, 623-292-7575. So we're there. We're here to help. And again, stick around next week because we're going to continue this conversation about real estate, investing, wholesaling, and flipping next week. So thank you for tuning in today. We'll see you next week.